Hello, content creators, videographers, anyone that's tuning into this live stream. If you are joining me live, give me a hashtag live down in the comments section. If you're watching this on the replay, give me a hashtag replay. I am going to wait a few moments here just to see who is going to pop in, but today I'm doing some Q&A on live streaming. So if you have any burning questions that you care to ask about live streams, go ahead and ask them right here. I'm going to see them on my screen off to the side here, and we can kind of chat about any of that stuff that might come up for you. So if you are joining me today, we're going to spend just under an hour answering your burning live stream questions. If you are a videographer, if you're a filmmaker, if you're thinking about starting to live stream, let me know down in those comments and I will interact with you there. I'll see your comments pop up here on the screen just behind me. And we're just going to do a little Q&A to answer any questions that you might have. And in the event that you don't have any questions, I actually have a couple that I've arranged here to answer for a few people. So we have some of our students in the Six-Figure Live Streamer course that have asked a couple questions. And so I'll be answering those here today. For those of you that don't know me, hi, my name is Zephan Moses Blaxberg, and I've been live streaming for about 7 years now, since before Facebook Live and YouTube Live was a thing. We've been offering this to all sorts of clients, from corporations to nonprofits and associations. And so today I wanted to take just a little bit of time to answer any questions that might come in from you, and just help you out in your businesses. If you have even just any video production studio questions that might pop up for you. Behind me, behind that paper roll backdrop that's covering up the window over there, is my studio, and that's where I film out of. And of course, we do go on the road and do stuff all the time in other places. So I'm happy to give you some ideas. If you're looking for any advice with growing your business, anything that comes up for you, then I will certainly be here to do that for you. So I'm streaming live in a few different locations. I'm streaming live to my YouTube. It's Zephan Moses. If you're not following me there, I've got a bunch of great free advice there. And then also we're streaming live to a couple of Facebook groups, including the freelance videographers and the content creators. So again, if you are joining me live, give me a hashtag live down in the comments and a hashtag replay if you're just watching the replay. And one of the first things that came up, Rockstar Cinema said, pricing is always a question, and how much to charge. So if you are following my YouTube channel, I have a great video on this already, but I think there's a lot of different schools of thought. And here are the two different schools of thought that I've observed, and then I'll tell you the method that I chose. So the first school of thought that I find is that people will charge based on value. And you'll see this happen with some of the courses and some of the groups that encourage you to, plan to bill like $30,000 for a simple one-day project. And I'm going to bring your question up on screen there. There you go. So there's that school of thought, right? There's charging based on the value that you bring to the table. And I'm a huge fan of that because I think that it makes sense. If you are bringing in a new $100,000 income stream for a business, then you certainly deserve some sort of a reward for doing that, not just a measly few $100s for filming a video, even if it was just a 30-second video. Then the second school of thought is charging for your time. And this is something that we've seen very traditionally. If you think about, when you're job searching, you'll see like an hourly rate or a salary, and then you do the math. We talk about minimum wage a lot. And so where I stand between the two is actually a hybrid. So what I've developed, and this is actually what we teach in the Six-Figure Live Streamer course, is a hybrid framework that not only takes into account your value that you're bringing to the table, but also the amount of time that you're putting into a project. So not only are you getting paid based on what you're bringing to the table and what you're able to deliver as a result for the client, because after all, we want our clients to get results, but it's also taking into account an easier way to kind of tally up your estimates when you're giving them to clients based on the amount of hours that you do pre-production, production, and post-production. So I typically pull that hybrid. And again, these are just some prices that I've been using for myself, just as an example. So typically, if I'm going out to film, I'm usually charging about 125 to 150 per hour. But we have a couple of other things that we recommend. Like when you're doing that on the invoice, maybe put it as a day rate. Certainly have a minimum, because if you're only on site for an hour and a half, but it's not taking into account the 45 minutes to drive there, 45 minutes to drive home, the hour you spent packing and charging batteries and stuff like that, you should certainly be making at least a half day or a full day's worth, because you're spending that much time on it. Um, so 125 to 150 an hour if it's just me, just a camera, maybe a tripod, maybe a gimbal, just filming. Now, on our live streams, what we've started to do is we've started to bill for all of the other things involved. We bill for the equipment that we're bringing to the table, because our equipment has an impact on the complexity of the live stream. And then the complexity of the live stream does have an impact on the overall result. So the way the show looks, the way it behaves, and potentially the results that it is going to drive for the clients. So there, we're billing for, a live stream director. There might be a producer to help out. We're billing for our camera operators, all on an hourly basis. But again, we're packaging this as a half day or a full day. We're billing for all of the equipment that we're bringing to the table. So every switcher, every encoder, every camera, every additional computer that we need, we're charging for those. And so again, I've kind of developed an Excel sheet for myself where I can kind of run down the numbers and say, okay, here's my contractors, how many hours, here's the director, how many hours, here's the producer, here's the PA, here's the camera operator. And then I go down the equipment list and say, okay, we need a live stream switcher, we need 2 laptops, we need this, we need that, teleprompter. And that's a large portion of how we're developing our pricing. Is it a fair price for someone who's brand new to be charging $150 an hour? Potentially, if they're really good at driving a result for the client. I think that one of the best pieces of advice that I was given when I first started out, because I didn't really know what to charge. I think I was maybe charging like 25 or $50 an hour when I first started. That piece of advice was that take that number and take what you would charge, and the next new client that walks through the door, just double just double the number. Don't say anything. Say my price is X times 2, whatever it was before times 2 in your head. Don't tell them you're multiplying it by 2. And that was the best piece of advice, because I went and did it and I started charging $50 an hour. And then I went back to my coach at the time and I said, "Hey, this is working." And she said, "Okay, double it." I was like, "Are you kidding me? Double from 50 to $100 an hour?" And she said, "If your clients are still saying yes, then you are charging properly for the value that you're bringing to the table." So I went back, charged $100 an hour. Boom. Clients said yes. You get a couple no's every once in a while, but clients basically said yes. Um, so that's really my best piece of advice there, is to kind of pick a starting point. But certainly on your next project that comes through, consider just doubling the price. And a lot of the time, when you double the price or you give a higher price to a client, you might have this fear that comes up of, oh, they might not go for this, right? Well, my recommendation there is, most of the time, it's not a flat out no. It's that this amount is too much for what we're looking for, and the conversation is still open. So it's not a this is a done deal, this isn't going to happen for us. It's, you can start to talk to them and say, well, let's scale this back. Let's reevaluate what you wanted to do, what you wanted your result to be, and then let's take it from there. And that's where mentally in your head you can take that price back down a notch, not back down by 50% since you doubled it, but maybe take it down by half of that. So if your hourly was 50 and you doubled it to 100 and they said no, maybe you bring it back down to 75 and say, look, really, I think here's what you're looking for. Here's what you told me. How about this number? And typically that's what will get them to say yes, is you're showing them that you can actually discount this down. You can give them a better value, and the conversation hasn't kind of stopped on a dime at that point. So that's my advice for pricing, how much to charge. Definitely watch the video that I put out there on YouTube. I have a couple videos on pricing for live streaming and also pricing for video. Again, if you're just joining us, I know we have some people that have joined in to watch live. I see some more questions coming through, and I'm going to get to those momentarily. If you do have a question, leave it down in the comments below. Also, give me a hashtag live if you're watching live on the spot so I know, and give me a hashtag replay if you're watching on the replay later on. And of course, if you have questions later on, leave those in the comments and I will do my best to get back to them. So, Rockstar Cinema, you also said, let's say live music. Most bands don't have money. That's how I got started. So, I will say that that is a point in time where you have to consider, is the market that you're going after a market that you can reasonably continue to pursue for the long term. I'm sure that other people would have different opinions on this. I think there's plenty of people that will, go hire a red camera operator and spend thousands of dollars on music videos. But a large majority of bands, like you said, do not have money. And so one of the biggest changes that I shifted toward was going to the people that have the money. So live streaming has allowed us to do that for sure. But I think that you have to take into consideration, maybe that's not the niche for you, because A, it might be a really crowded market. B, a lot of the potential prospects might not have a lot of money. And then C, you need to make money for the long term. You need to build a life for yourself and retirement funds and to support your family. So personally, I think it's great that you started in music videos. I think it's great that you're doing that. Potentially now it's time to figure out how you can shift towards working still maybe in that music industry, but with companies and organizations that are going to be willing to pay you what you're worth. So maybe it means going out and talking to some bigger companies like SoundCloud, Bandcamp, trying to work with them and still using that musical background that you have. It doesn't mean getting rid of musical options or bands altogether, but look, me on a daily basis, I've probably got a few clients still that are, paying way less than what I would normally charge now, but I keep them on because you never know who they're going to refer you to. I keep them on because they've been reliable, dependable, they're fun to work with. So I'm not saying that you have to get rid of them entirely, but definitely kind of re-examine and take a look at that industry that you're going after. How do you determine how much your charges for equipment? I'm going to bring this up on screen for those watching to see. Another really good question. So, one of the things that I like to do is I like to look at my equipment and how much it costs retail. So, let's take, for example, let's just say my iPhone or a piece of gear that I was using on a shoot, right? That iPhone probably costs $900, give or take. My goal is to make sure that if I use this about 6 months, once every month or every other month, if I use this like maybe 6 times throughout the year, that this is paid for. So all of my gear, my goal is to charge based on being able to pay it off within the year. So I would take that $900, and I'm really bad at math, but I would divide it up by that 6 month or that 12 month, however quickly I want to pay it off. And then that fee is usually what I'll tack on for charging for something. So for example, my ATEM switcher, my ATEM Extreme, you can kind of see it back here in the corner there. That is a $1,300 switcher. And so if my goal is to pay that off within a year, I'm going to charge about $100 each time that I take that out. And usually that's just a flat equipment fee. So if the project is a 2 or 3 day long event, I'm not going to bill it per day. I'm just going to bill it once for the whole event, but that's going to slowly get paid off over time. So I think you have to pick a number for yourself, a percentage of the total cost of the product, but I would definitely recommend having that be something that you could pay off within 6 to 12 months, something that you could pay off rather quickly, because at the end of the day, you don't want to hold on to debt and you want these items to be paid for pretty quickly so that you can start profiting money that you can save both for yourself, for your business, and for buying new equipment later down the road. So great question, and thank you for asking that. Again, for any of you joining in, I know that we're watching this live in a few different locations. We're streaming live to my YouTube channel. We're streaming live to a couple of Facebook groups. Feel free to leave comments right down below there. I'm going to see them come through over here, and then I can go ahead and answer them as they all come through. Again, if you're watching live, give me a hashtag live. And if you're watching on the replay, give me a hashtag replay. Sound 4 Pro Audio. Hey, how are you doing? Thanks for watching. I see you commenting there on YouTube. For anyone wondering how I'm doing this live stream, just to give you some background on this setup, it's very simple. Using Restream, so I can go to multiple platforms at once. So it's allowing me to send this feed to Facebook and YouTube, actually 2 Facebook pages and YouTube. The camera that I'm using, this is the Canon M6 Mark II. It's a mirrorless camera, pretty small. I've got it on a little like grippy magic arm head connected to just like a shelf that's next to my desk here, using an HDMI out to the Elgato Cam Link going right into my Mac over here. But a couple of big screens. That's why I kind of look off to the side every once in a while to check your comments over here. But that's how my streaming setup is. And then lighting wise, I've got it's actually a really cheap, I think it's from Neewer. It's a round light panel, LED. It was maybe $90 or so. And then I've got a diffusion on it from Defuse. They make some really great collapsible diffusions. And it's just kind of clamped up above my monitor just to give me a nice little key light. I wish I had set up a hair light for this, just something to kind of separate me from the background, but this was a little impromptu today. So I didn't have a ton of time to set that up, but that would have been my goal, to kind of do some sort of a separator back here and then maybe clean up my background a little bit. But we're getting ready to go into a couple of video gigs tomorrow. So everything's a little messy at the moment. Okay, let's see what else we've got coming through. Another good question here. I'm going to pop this up on screen. So I apologize if I pronounce your name wrong. Takato says, what is the best equipment that you've bought for live streaming? Fantastic question. So I will preface this by saying I have a lot of different pieces of equipment for live streaming. A lot of different pieces of equipment. You know, right now it's as simple as the Elgato Cam Link 4K just going straight into my computer. And this is really good for the simple stuff, right? Just one camera. I'm bringing on your comments on screen using Restream. So it's mostly software based, no real hardware here. I'm in my office, so it's a hardwired internet connection. I don't have to worry and concern myself too much with that. We've got a fiber line, so I think it's 1,000 megabits up and down. So that is on the bare minimum, cheapest level. I highly recommend those cam links. I think they're less than $150. Sometimes they go on sale for like $100. So if you're just looking to get one camera up and just straight into a laptop to be able to go live, that is probably one of the cheapest and easiest ways to get started. Moving further up the chain, you'll see kind of over here, that is my ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. It's about $1,300. It's an 8-camera switcher. It also allows me 2 HDMI outputs. And through that, I can use a wired Ethernet connection to stream live to any platform that accepts an RTMP signal, or I could do it similar to how I'm doing today's live stream, just through Restream. Now, on the top end, I partner with other companies locally that own a TriCaster TC2 Elite. It's about $35,000, not including the bells and whistles, maybe closer to like 40 or 50 when all is said and done. And that allows us to really run some bigger virtual conferences, multi-day events, things like that. So that's just kind of a little peek behind the scenes at some of the equipment. But I guess you asked what is the best piece of equipment that I bought for a live stream. I'm going to have to go with the Decimator. Decimator makes a bunch of converters and things, but the Decimator, I believe it's the MDHX, is a converter that can either take an HDMI feed or an SDI feed, and it can convert it to pretty much any other resolution and frame rate. And it's one of my best troubleshooting tools because it can push a color through if it's not getting a feed. So you can tell it to push through red or blue, and that's how you can troubleshoot if a video feed isn't coming through. It's also really good if you're trying to convert like odd laptop resolutions to go into your live stream. So it's about $300-400, probably the best tool in my kit. Moving on down the list, again, if you're joining me live, if you're watching this live, just give me a hashtag replay, or a hashtag live if you're watching live, replay if you're watching the replay. And if you have questions, type them down in the comments. I'm going to stay live for probably another, hopefully a good 30 minutes or so if we can get through these questions. And I'll do my best to answer them for you. Tell us how you find ideal clients. Okay, next question up. How to find ideal clients. So, I will say that this is something that gets way easier over time once you've built that reputation for yourself locally. But I'll give you a couple of ideas on where you could consider starting. So, for me, one of my starting points was building a network around me. So, I actually joined a local BNI networking group, and I know BNI gets a bad rep sometimes. So I'll say two things here. One, our group eventually left BNI, but still continues as a weekly networking group. So having some sort of consistent weekly or monthly group where you can really show face and build relationships with people. And then two, the other thing I'm going to say about BNI was just that there are some chapters that are not for you. There's going to be chapters that are the local people, the plumber, the lawyer, the painter, the yard work guy, right? And some of these chapters are not going to provide the ideal client for you. And the beauty of BNI is that they allow you to go and visit any chapter you want. And they also list the chapters online on their directory on their website. So you can go and look in advance to see, oh, do they have a marketing person? Do they have a PR agency? Do they maybe have a graphic designer or a web designer? These are all people that can complement my services and my work and potentially send me work. So that was one of the biggest things that I did to get started with finding my ideal clients. And then I will say over time, I also started doing like weddings and things that I absolutely hated. And you'll find out really quick. You'll kind of feel it in your gut if it's something that you don't feel like is fitting within your ideal client space. So I would say too, just go with your gut. Obviously, don't turn down everything because work is work. But if you really enjoy it, then that's kind of that sweet spot that you want to get into. Um, and then I guess any other piece of advice as far as finding your ideal clients, I think look at considering starting with one particular niche or industry. I actually found dentistry to be a really simple industry for me. There was a lot of dentists out there that needed content. There were a lot of dentists that were great dentists and terrible business owners and terrible marketers. And so finding a certain industry to begin with, it might not be where you stay, but just finding an industry, because once you get one dentist under your belt, it's much easier to meet other dentists or people in that industry and say, hey, we've done this for them, check out what we did here, maybe this is something that would work for you too. So I know you're all asking questions. I promise you I'm going to go down the list and I'm going to keep looking for them. Mark from New Zealand, thank you so much for showing up today. It's awesome to see someone from the other side of the globe joining in right now. I was probably halfway towards you. I was in Hawaii about a week ago. Let's see what Jeff says. Jeff says, other than providing the equipment and service needed for clients, will you give some advice related to software integration to drive more revenue results for clients? Thanks. Yeah, so Jeff, one of the big things with software is that it's going to differ depending on what you're looking to achieve, right? So for a lot of our clients, we've found that many of them still want to stay with Zoom as the platform that we stream into, mostly because some of their target audience already has Zoom, already knows how to use it, and it's familiar, it's easy. For other clients, they've gone with bigger platforms like Hopin or BigMarker, but really it's all going to come down to what you're looking to do with the people afterwards. So, if you're looking to incorporate things like the sales of tickets and registration for our conference, you might want to go with something like Hopin or the newer Zoom events that they just released. I haven't done any integrations with AWS yet, so I will say that is kind of outside of what I've experienced clients needing right now. I'm sure at some point in time it's going to come up and we'll approach that, but a large majority of our work is typically going to Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, or potentially like a private lockdown thing, whether it's like for a conference like to Hopin. We've used Hoova. We've also embedded video players in private websites that the client made. So that's where we kind of team up with their marketing team to figure out what they want to do. And sometimes they even handle all of that stuff on the back end. What we try to do is to be the people that take the tech stress away from them and get the stream out there. We can certainly advise and give some really good ideas for making a successful event and driving results. But again, I'd probably partner up with some sort of like marketing or PR company if they're looking to do more stuff after the fact or integrate features or sales of products or anything like that afterwards. All right, next question. Thoughts on YOLO Box Pro? So I actually was given a YOLO Box, the original one, from YOLO Live. I really liked it at the time. I think that when I received it, it was probably a little too brand new to make my determination. And I think with the A10 Mini Extreme coming out, having those 8 inputs versus the like 2 plus USB that the original YOLO Box had, it was hard to say. I'm also not a big fan of all in one for one big reason. And we've seen this happen even at the $35,000 TriCaster level, is that you overload the unit. So if you've got, 8 inputs and you're trying to record isolated copies of all these videos and you're trying to stream and you're doing graphics and you're doing video playback all from one computer, if something goes wrong, it goes wrong spectacularly. And so for me, I've been a bigger fan of being to offload certain things. So I love that the YOLO box has the ability to stream over cellular. Me personally, I'm probably going to bring in like a cellular bonding unit or at bare minimum a hotspot if I'm doing that, just because I want to be able to offload that. It's one less thing to help the unit not overheat, to make sure that you can kind of troubleshoot that individual piece if you needed to. I think the YOLO box is an awesome tool for people who are just getting started and want maybe a 1 or 2 camera solution. I saw they're adding in like green screen keying capabilities, so that could be really neat. The built-in features to adding graphics and text on screen is definitely starting to get there. So I'm definitely a fan. It's just not my favorite piece, but I think it's a great tool for the right person. Next up, Mark said, I watched your YouTube videos on pricing. Do you feel the rates have gone up based on the demand? So, Mark, I think that the rates have not necessarily gone up. I mean, I've definitely increased my rates and adjusted how I charge over the years so that I've been able to charge more. I wouldn't necessarily say that, like, I'm not price gouging. I'm not increasing my prices on clients simply because there's a demand for it right now. It wouldn't surprise me that we're starting to see a separation between the streamers that are charging up here and the streamers that are charging up here. And we're kind of losing that middle ground, very similar to how our society is I think we're kind of losing a middle class there. Um, but I think that with that higher pricing, we're gaining a better experience for people. They're getting the better companies that can just do more. So I would like to think that I'm kind of in that middle ground, working my way to that higher ground. But again, I'm still a one man band. At the same time, I've certainly been undercut, and I've had people who are like, "Oh yeah, we charged like $800 to bring 4 people for like a half day thing," and I'm like, so are you paying them $12 an hour? Like, I don't understand. So I think there's always going to be people that are not charging, anywhere close to me. But I think that our work is kind of speaking for itself and showing people that there's a lot more value in what we're bringing to the table. All right, next one up. What type of information would you need from an IT team at a venue? Great question. I think it's from Daniel. Well, Dan, good question. So when I'm going in, I typically do a site survey. We try to do this bare minimum 2 weeks in advance so that if we're going to the venue, we're scoping it out, we need to fix anything, we can do it. The biggest things that I'm doing are, one, I'm scoping out the venue for where cameras are going to go, where cables are going to run, where power is, where internet is. But two, then it's all down to the actual stream. So if there's wired Ethernet, whether it's a port in the wall, or whether it's running a cable down a hallway to a router, I'm going to test that out. I'm going to plug in, do a speed test, see what my upload speed is, because that's the most important for me. And I'm also going to do a test live stream. So something that I did was I created just a dummy unpublished Facebook page. And you can also, I believe, do this on YouTube as unlisted, and just do a test stream and let it run for like 15 minutes or so while you're talking to the client, and see what happens there. See if the connection breaks. If everything's going strong and everything looks good, then typically we'll say we're good to go. But if we're having trouble, that's where we'll call in their IT department and we might have to offer them the IP address for our computer. They might have to whitelist it on their network. There might be certain ports that they have to open up, or they might be throttling the amount of data that can pass. So if they see anything over, I think we were working somewhere once and they said anything over 5 megabits per second, they were going to see it and kind of flag it. So it really just depends. You kind of have to work with their IT people. I'm not going in and being specifically like, hey, you need to open port number, whatever. But I'm typically saying, here's the results that I'm seeing when I try to stream. And then most of the time leaving it to their IT professionals to kind of handle it from there, because that's their job to do that. Otherwise, if we can't get a connection on site, we might consider bringing in like a Teradek bonding encoder where we can use multiple cellular connections and hotspot connections to go out, basically bypass any of the in-house network. And again, that's something you could bring on site for your site survey, do a test run on it and see what it looks like, make sure that it doesn't drop out. Cool. What type of information? Oh, we got that one. Have you used Zoom ISO? So I have actually seen Zoom ISO quite a bit. It's very interesting to me. The one piece of equipment that I don't have to make Zoom ISO work well for me would be one of those PCI cards to be able to spit out all those feeds as separate feeds. But one of the things that we do with the TriCaster is we have the Skype Call Connect. So we have the ability to bring in, I think it's up to like 6 Skype callers and then like another 9 or so on Zoom. And I think recently they started to integrate like FaceTime abilities. So we use that anytime that we're working with a lot of callers, because that's worked really well for us over the last couple of years. And typically when you have that many virtual guests calling in, you want to have stuff like talkback, so you can talk back individually to different people, which Zoom does not provide. Zoom is just kind of one mixed feed to all of the guests in your call. So haven't played with it, still very interested in it. Looking at a couple other alternatives as well, though, that I'm also interested in. I haven't quite found the one thing to replace what the TriCaster can do with those virtual callers just yet. I'm liking what I see with Restream, with their studio that I'm using right now, and being able to bring in extra guests that way. I also like what I'm seeing with StreamYard and where they're headed. So there's a lot of good options out there. I'm not crazy about the browser-based ones because I feel like it's not as reliable just yet, but I think we're starting to get there pretty soon. Okay, totally agree with the separate items for that reason. Yep. So we do like to break our hardware up just a little bit for reliability. If something goes wrong, everything could go wrong if it's all in one unit. What application do you use to bring a remote guest to a live event? Good question. So you could do it right here, like we're doing with Restream's studio feature. It allows you to bring in extra guests. I'm not doing it today. But the tricky part is you need to be able to make sure that the people that are live and in person can see and hear the people that they're talking to without that audio of the virtual guest going through that person's mic and back in and creating a feedback loop. So one of the ways that I have done that in the past is with the TriCaster, which I don't have here. I work with another company to bring that in on bigger shoots. Also behind me here, there's a Mac Mini tucked away there. And so that Mac Mini you can use to pin people to a second display. And so if I'm bringing in one guest, I will make a back-end Zoom and I'll pin the person to the second display and bring that into my ATEM. And then I'll just send them a return feed of whoever's speaking here in my studio or live on site. The person that is in person and needs to be able to hear that, we give them what's called an IFB earpiece. And they can basically hide it if it's female, under their hair. For guys, they might just turn their head a certain way. For anyone else that wants to hide that, you can certainly just kind of sit a little different orientation. Like right now, this ear, like if I had an earpiece in, you wouldn't see it because my head's just angled ever so slightly. So that's what I'm doing for bringing in virtual guests for now, but I'm definitely exploring what it would be like to use more of the Restream studio stuff, make life a little easier for us when we're out on the road, don't have to bring as much equipment. Do you think the live stream rates have gone up based on demand? I think we mentioned that one. Yeah, I don't think they've gone up necessarily. I think we're just seeing people that are better at putting on not legitimate, but more well-produced events. Joe said, if only the MDHX were available anywhere in the world right now. Joe, I'm sorry you're having trouble finding those. Yeah, I do like the decimators way more than Blackmagic's. They've just been a little more reliable for me. I would say maybe check eBay. Check some of the user groups on Facebook. There's a lot of stuff on Facebook Marketplace that I've found. Mark asked, what cameras do you prefer to use, PTZ, camcorders, or DSLR? Great question. I had a video I did about this of what's kind of the best to use. And the best to use is going to depend on the event that you're shooting, right? So if I'm in a hotel ballroom and I can only stage up in the very back of the room, I'm going to need a really nice camcorder that can zoom all the way into the front and keep a really nice f-stop for me, because those ballrooms tend to get really dark. PTZs, I bought two. I bought the two new Canon ones. I'm actually getting ready to buy the two new ones from Feel World to install for a synagogue client. So I prefer a mixture. Right now, my main streaming kit has been a mix of the Canon C70, so the cinema lineup of cameras. I've got an EOS R that sometimes I'll throw up as just like a backup camera. I've got a Canon XA 55, I believe. It's 4K 1-inch sensor, pretty nice and low light. But that's a camcorder style, so it's better for zooming in and moving around and following somebody on a stage. And then I have the two PTZ cameras that I'm starting to incorporate. So we do a wide mix, but we're a big fan of the Canon Cinema lineup of cameras as kind of our starting point. We use a lot of C200s, C70s, things like that. Brian said, how often is the content updated in the course? Great question. So for those of you that don't know or are just joining in, Six Figure Live Streamer is a course that's available. You can check it out on contentcreator.com. This course is something that I'm actually constantly adding videos to. I actually have, I believe, 12 videos in the editing queue right now. Because anytime that someone has a question and we're identifying any holes in the course or topics that might not have been discussed, then we're going ahead and making content around that so that we can not only plug up that hole, but also kind of answer them live in our Facebook support group. So we're getting them help pretty much live on the spot as soon as they need it. And then the course is getting videos added to it. I think it's been at least a video a week going in there over the last couple months. And I certainly intend to keep it as up to date as possible. One of the things that we do is we teach certain things that are considered evergreen. So evergreen is stuff that's basically going to last forever, right? Like our strategy on pricing is something that we believe moving forward is something that's going to kind of stick. Our strategy on just understanding how the basics of live streaming works, right? Like you need a video feed, you need an internet connection, you need a platform or a destination that it needs to go to. Like that flow is never going to change. It's mostly going to be as the equipment changes and the tools change that we use. So right now, it's up to date. You know, when the A10 Mini Extreme came out, I added a couple more trainings and videos on that because some of our students decided that they want to use the Extreme model instead of the A10 Mini Pro, just as I have. So we're definitely making sure that we keep this stuff up to date as best as we can. To that same point, you know, I run a video production studio full time, probably more than full time, like double time. So I'm out here working in the field 60 to 80 hours a week myself. I've got a shoot tomorrow. I have a shoot Thursday. I have a 3-day conference next week. I have a 6-day conference the week after that. So I'm certainly in the field using and testing all this stuff as well so that I can turn around and make sure that I'm keeping up to date with everything. And so we certainly see for the future here, for the time being, we'll definitely be updating stuff as we go along to the best of our abilities. So I would say that we're updating this content kind of on a monthly to bi-monthly basis. I'm not going to cover every single live streaming unit that comes out because you've got companies like Feel World dropping their switcher, which looks really similar to like the A10 Mini. We've got all these other companies that are going to pop up, you know, YOLO Live. And what we've done is we've kind of chosen Blackmagic is our favorite one for streaming. And so that's why we teach a lot of the A10 Mini Pro, A10 Mini Extreme stuff. But you know, yeah, if Blackmagic tomorrow like discontinued their A10 Mini Pros and A10 Mini Extremes and said, here's this new Ultra Hulk Thor Lightning Edition one, then yeah, you bet you're behind. I'd be buying that one, training up on it, making sure I understand it and that I'm using it out in the field before I would turn around and say, here's what we've learned and how to use it. So we're definitely keeping stuff up to date as we possibly can. Thank you for that question. And for anyone else that's joining in, I'm going to stay on for a little bit longer here to answer any questions that you might have. I'm going to give my voice a break for just a moment and get some water. But if you're watching live, if you have any questions, pop those down in the comments for me. Let me know you're here with the hashtag live. Let me know you're on the replay with the hashtag replay. And any questions that come in after we're done the live stream, I'll do my best to answer them for you. So any other questions, just let me know. Two questions that did come in from students of ours within the course. One of them was data management. What are you doing to manage your data? So I am mostly recording on the A10 Mini Extreme to Samsung T5 solid state drives. Sometimes we record isolated feeds of all the cameras. Sometimes it's just a program recording. Really depends on the event and what we're editing afterwards. So that's kind of my basic recording. And then in my rack unit that I built, which you'll also see on my YouTube channel, if you want to check it out, it's Zephan Moses. You may have seen it already. The rack unit has a Blackmagic HyperDeck built in, and that will record to SD cards. So I have kind of two recordings there. I've got a Shogun, Atomos Shogun that I record to sometimes. And then when it comes time to fully back up, I have an 8-bay, I think it's called the Thunder Bay from OWC. It's 8 hard drive bays. I think there's like something like 80 terabytes in the one that I put together, all rated together. And then it uses Thunderbolt to connect to my main editing computer, so I can back up stuff to there. And then if you haven't seen it, Backblaze is a really neat tool that you can use to back up from there to the cloud and just have a remote like offsite version. And then every once in a while, we're going to use hard drives that we'll buy charged to the client, and we'll ship the client like, hey, here's your copy to hang on to. So that's kind of my typical for hard drive storage. Another question just came in from Aaron. Aaron said, what is the minimum upload speed that you will use for a live stream? Are there any other network metrics that you pay attention to? So Aaron, my minimum is about 15 megabits per second upload. Have I done slower? Yes. I will typically use something like OBS or an encoder to bring down the megabits to like 2 or 3 and maybe do it in like 720. It's going to look meh. So I think you kind of have to prepare your client for that. Obviously, you'll know during the site survey what you can or can't do, but we've certainly done that before. I like to not touch anything under 10, really. And that's pushing it. And I'd have to know that like no one else is on the network. Because that slow of a connection, we're talking pretty slow cell phone hotspot speeds. Like I might as well just pull out my phone, turn on the hotspot, and just do it myself from the phone instead of using their internet connection. Even with a bonded encoder, you're usually getting 2 or 3 cell phone connections. So even if you had like 4 or 5 megabits on each one merged, you're going to get roughly 12 to 15. So I would want that as a bare minimum, somewhere around 10 to 15. But yeah, we've definitely gone to places where there is no internet. Then you've got to use cellular, or if you can't even use cellular, sometimes you record it as if it were live and then just run back to an office and play it back live. Because there's only so much you can do before you have to bring in a satellite truck. And not every client has 20 grand to throw at that. Network metrics, anything else? Typically, if the speeds are that low, I'm not looking for any other metrics as far as the upload speed goes. I'm just thinking about alternatives. What am I going to do? What are my options? Where do I go from here? Next question that came in says, what service are you using? So at my office, I have FiOS business class. Oh, hey, you're over in Cockeysville. You're down the street from me. I'm in Owings Mills. Good to see another local person. So I have business class FiOS that's giving me like, I think it's 1,000 up, 1,000 down. If not, I know at home I'm getting like 300 or 400 up and down. I highly recommend against Comcast, especially since you're in the Baltimore area. Hopefully they don't find me and hunt me down for this, but I really believe Xfinity Comcast is the devil. FiOS has really consistently been able to deliver me simultaneous speeds. Yes, I think Mario is saying, just say they suck, please. Yeah. So, I like my FiOS at home, 300 or 400 up and down. At the office, definitely more than that. I can't recommend that enough. In the city, it's definitely going to be an issue in Baltimore City. Everyone's kind of locked into Comcast. So yeah, I'm using Verizon all the way here. Another question that popped in from Mariana. She's actually one of our students in the course. And she said, getting started from 0 clients, how do you go and do a big push for leads? So 0 clients is a starting place for a lot of people. It's where many of you might even be starting if you haven't started to live stream. It's where I started, when I had to first start my video company. Back in 2013 is when I officially went off and launched my LLC. If I were starting from 0 tomorrow, if I had the equipment, right, just assume I've got the gear and assume I've got the knowledge, but I don't have the clients. There's 3 things I'm going to do. 1, I'm going to make sure that my SEO is on point. So when you search my company and try to do your research on me, you're going to find my website. You're going to find out all the info about me, all the info about my services. You're going to see my Google business page. You're going to see my Facebook business page. You're going to see my YouTube channel. You're going to see me listed on Yelp. Don't buy Yelp ads. They're terrible. Don't do it. It's a scam. You're going to see me listed on all of these directories. So making myself present and known virtually on the internet, SEO wise, right? That's the first thing I'm going to do. The second piece I'm going to do is then I'm going to build my local network. So I'm going to go out to every single BNI chapter locally, which there's like 20 or 30 of them in my area, like within 30 or 40 miles. I'm going to go to every chamber of commerce meeting. So I'm based in Baltimore. There's a Baltimore City Chamber of Commerce. There's a Baltimore County Chamber of Commerce. There's a local one for my town. There's actually 2 of them. They're kind of competing. So there are 4 chambers of commerce that are all putting on Zooms and networking events, both in person and virtually. I'm going to be going to those events and making sure that I walk away with no fewer than 3 people with planned meetings on the books. Don't take a card and say, I'll follow up, I'll email you later. Set those plans in motion in person with them. Say, hey, what are you doing next Thursday? I'm free. How about we grab lunch? Plan it then, and then take their card and say, I'll send you an email follow up. I'll give you a calendar invite so we can book that time. But plan that on site. Don't wait for them to reach out to you and follow up. You need to be the follow upper. Okay. So that second thing I do is BNI, any of the networking stuff. So chambers of commerce. And then the third thing that I would do is I would start to communicate to my local community of colleagues. So one of the best decisions that I made when I first started was I found a good 5 or 6 videographers that were light years ahead of me, 7, 10, 12, 15, 20 years out, had been doing this for a while. And I said, look, I'm probably going to need to fill some of my extra time because I'm not going to book out every day. And I'm going full time on my own. I'm starting a business, but I'm going to need some extra work. And if you need someone extra on your team, I would love to be that person. And I started to build a local network of other video companies and videographers that typically every once in a while had to bring somebody out. And that allowed me to not only perfect my craft and stay working and stay making money in the in-between, but oftentimes that's actually led to relationships that now sometimes they'll pass some of their clients to me if they're too busy because they know I've worked with them. They know that they can trust me. So that's the third thing that I would do is build a local network of people within your industry. Make your competitors your friends. Isn't there a saying about like the enemy of my enemy is my friend or something like that? A big misconception that a lot of people had going into this industry when I was first starting was that there was not enough work to go around. And if someone else got work, they were taking it away from me. When the truth was that was never your gig in the first place. And there's a great book by my old mentor and also my first boss out of college, Dan Kennedy, called Wealth Attraction. And it's all about how to attract more wealth into your life and how to realize that when other people are getting work, it's not something like they were taking it from you because there is still so much more work to go around. So I highly recommend that book if that's something that you're starting from 0, you're trying to figure out where to go from there. So I've been live for about 48 minutes and 24 seconds now. And as you can tell, my voice doesn't last much longer than an hour on these, especially when I have to talk into a podcast mic and kind of present to people. It's a little different than a conversation face to face here. So if you have any final questions, anything that's coming in for you that you're thinking about asking me, I'm going to stay on for just another moment or two and answer those. Looks like we have quite a few people watching. So if you have any questions, whether it's live streaming or video production, I'm going to do my best to give you my best advice, any of my experiences. And again, if you're watching live, comments below, type in hashtag live if you're watching live, just so I know you're here, and give me a hashtag replay if you're watching on the replay, and I'll go back in, I'll check and see if there's any comments or questions later today. And new gear wise, I'm checking out some new cool stuff. I actually got this in the mail today. Let's see if this shows up. So if any of you have seen Aaron Parecki on YouTube, this is his PK1 Extreme stand. I'm going to be checking this out. And we're working on getting in some of the Feel World PTZ cameras, building out some rack units. That's exciting. So playing with a lot of new gear. Something so silly that I absolutely love. So first of all, Harbor Freight Tools. If y'all aren't buying the knockoff Pelican cases there, the Apache cases, it is a great deal. But something I bought the other day was this. This is a remote that comes with 3 wireless outlets that can power things on or off. So actually, I'm going to show you here. It's got a 1, 2, and 3 button. And if I hit this, turns off the light back there, turns it back on again. And then my key light here, if I hit 1, turns off my key light. It's like $20 maybe for this and the 3 wireless outlets that come with it. I can't recommend this enough. If you're like in a studio or in a space where you want to kind of automate things and make life easier on yourself. Let me see this. You can see it here. So it's got like these 3 outlets, this remote system. They're numbered 1, 2, and 3. Highly, highly recommend that. Just a cool little hack, something to have on hand for yourself. Yeah, so you're saying, and Ono Coffee, I don't know your name. I would love to get to meet you or get to know you since you're local, and not have to call you just Coffee because I don't know. Maybe your name is Ono, but let me know. You ordered one of the Aaron PK stands back in September. Got to get some small rig. Yeah, so they've got some different mounting. It's pretty sweet. There's some cool mounting things, and they're actually, hey Jay, they're working on some really cool stuff there, and I'm actually in talks with the guys that create it. So I'm gonna give them a shout out, let them know that they're doing some really cool stuff in Ux 3D and in UX 3D. But the guys making these, they're doing some nifty things. Jay, next door to Ashland Cafe, awesome. I'll have to stop in and visit there, but definitely feel free to reach out to me since you're local. We'd love to get to know you a little better. So we are rounding out our time here on the live stream. I answered a ton of questions for you all. And if there's anything else that pops up on the replay, I will do my best to go back through and answer them for you. I certainly do appreciate all of you for coming to check out this live stream today. If you are interested in Six Figure Live Streamer, you can head on over to contentcreator.com. You'll see all the other courses that my friends Paul Xavier and Anthony Gallo have put together. There's a lot of really cool things for filmmakers there. But if you're thinking about adding live streaming as a service to your business, definitely check out Six Figure Live Streamer. I am going to continue to add awesome, valuable, free content to the YouTube for you. I'm going to continue to do live streams like this in the Facebook group. So I encourage you to keep following me. One of the best ways you can do that is just subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also pay attention in a few different Facebook groups. 1, I've got the Videographers Connect Facebook group. 2, we've got the freelance videographers community. And 3, we've got the content creator community. So I would love to see you all on social media there. Feel free to connect, LinkedIn, Facebook. Let's stay connected here. And thank you all for your time. I hope that you have a good rest of your week. Happy Tuesday. Tomorrow's hump day. And if you are keeping busy, congrats on all of your business success. So thank you all for watching. Zephan Moses here. I'm signing off for the day, but I certainly appreciate your time, and thanks so much for spending a little bit of your day with me.